Hello, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. Let me see. I got my volume up. All right. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me? Can you see me?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Sylvia. So how is everyone? So excited that you guys decided to join me for this webinar. So we are going to be here for like the next 90 minutes. I'm going to teach you guys about how to set up a trust and some infinite banking so that you guys can build wealth the right way. So I have a short presentation for you guys, and then after that, we can dive into some Q&A. So if you guys have any questions, please save them for the end so that we can dive in and answer any questions that you guys might have, okay?
Can't see you though. Your camera's not on. Can't see you.
Seen people we've seen by Leah, literally like half the country, right? So same as Live Aid.
Who else was a part of farming?
Okay, can you see me now? I'm not sure what's wrong with my camera. Can you see me?
No.
I can see you. Your camera is on.
It is? Okay.
Yes, it is.
Yes,
It
we
is
can
on?
see you.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. Because I feel like I can see myself. I'm not sure what's wrong with your screen, Sylvia. I don't know if you're on a phone or if you are on a computer. But anyways, thank you so much. So let's dive in. You guys, my name is Christina Ebet. I am a trust strategist. I have been a trustee since 2015, and I'm going to teach you guys how to set up a trust. You can actually set up a trust yourself. So you don't need an attorney in order to set up a trust. It is a contract, and you can create your own contract, okay? So allow me to, let's see, let's record this. Let me share my screen. There we go. Perfect. Let's see here. Perfect. So let's see. There we go. I already introduced myself. So this is a disclaimer. This is not legal advice or tax advice. I am not a licensed attorney or a certified public accountant. So the objective of this webinar is for you guys to learn what is a trust, the different contributors in a trust, how to operate a trust, how to have some different tax strategies, some wealth building strategies, and how to protect your assets. So these companies, right? We got the Trump organization, we got Berkshire Hathaway, we got Amazon. These are billion-dollar organizations, right? So how is it that they pay little to no taxes? We heard Trump say that he doesn't pay taxes because he's smart. We heard Warren Buffett say that he pays less taxes than his secretary. So how is it that they do it? The way that they do it is because they're structured the right way to reduce their, heavy taxation, and they have trust within their structure. So if these types of organizations have trust within their structure, you should also have a trust within your structure, okay? So what is a trust entity? So a trust is a contract. It is an entity just like you and me. So with this entity is actually considered as a living, breathing entity, okay? So it's anything that a human can do, a trust can do. So if you can buy a house, a trust could buy a house. If you could buy a car, a trust could buy a car. If you could build credit, a trust can also build credit. So there's no limitations to what a trust can do. So with the trust, like I said, it is a contract. It is a document, or what we call an agreement. So there's different parts to this contract. The two main important parts to the contract is the indenture and the declaration. So the declaration of contract for the trust is what you're declaring it is, and it is what you're declaring it is not. So at the end of this presentation, I am going to show you guys what a trust entity looks like, or a trust contract, so that you can begin to get familiar with, with what a trust looks like, okay? So like I said, the declaration, you need to declare that it is a private contract, it is a trust, and declare what it is not. It is not an LLC, it's not a corporation, it's not a partnership, it's not, any of those other types of entities, okay? So the other part to the trust is the indenture. The indenture, the word indenture means agreement. So with this agreement, it is where you have all of your provisions, all of the different sections within your trust trust, where you're spelling out the rules and regulations and how you want the trust to be ran, okay? So that's what the actual agreement is. And then let's talk about the different parties involved. So you have three main parties involved. The first one is the grantor. The grantor is the person who is actually creating or establishing the trust, okay? Another name for grantor is settler or trustor. So when you're doing your research, you're going to see those names come up. And just know if you see the word settler, it means grantor, okay? So the grantor, like I said, is the person who's establishing or creating the trust, and they are the person who is actually putting the consideration. So with most contracts, you have to have a consideration. So with a trust, you have to actually give value to the trust when you're setting it up. So if you were to create a trust today, you want to give some type of value, meaning you're going to put an asset in it, you're going to put funds in the trust fund, something like that. And so usually it's the grantor that does that. They're the ones who are gifting the initial assets into the trust generally. The next party involved is the trustee. The trustee is the controller of the trust, okay? So that is the individual who's controlling all the assets. They choose what assets to buy. They choose what assets to liquidate, okay? They have all of the power and control. We call them the fiduciary because they are the fiduciary for the beneficiary. So they are operating the trust on a day-to-day basis for the benefit of the beneficiary, okay? So like I said, the trustee has all the power, all the control. So if you are creating a trust, you want to put yourself in that position where you are the controller of the trust, okay? So the next party involved is the beneficiary. The beneficiary is the inheritor of the trust. So that is the individual who, when the trust expires, they are going to receive the assets in the trust. They're the individuals that benefit from the trust. So they also receive distributions. If the trust estate is generating income and there's distributions that are owed, then the beneficiaries would be receiving those, okay? So the trust, it actually has an establishment date, which is the day you're creating it, and it also has a termination date, which is the day that it expires, okay? If you, and generally you're going to operate your trust anywhere between 7 to upwards of 100 years. And you want to, if you want your trust to last for generations and generations, then what you want to do is you want to renew that trust before it expires. So at least 30 to 60 days before it expires. And when or if that happens, then because the trust expired, you cannot longer operate it. And that means that all those assets inside of the trust, the house, the bank account, the vehicles, those are now going to be transferred to the beneficiary. So when the trust expires, but the whole point is for you to actually continue to renew the trust for generations and generations to come. And you want those assets to continue in the name of the trust. So there's different types of trust. There's several different types of trust. We'll get into a few. So with the trust, right, there's hundreds of trusts. You have to choose the trust that is the best fit for you, for your family, for your organization, for your ministry. So I'm going to give you some different categories. The first category is express versus implied. So what does that mean? Well, an express trust is a written trust. So it's in black and white and it's in a contract. An implied trust is an oral trust. So just like how you can have an oral agreement between two people, it's the same thing. So you have an oral agreement between a grantor and a trustee, and that solidifies as a trust, okay? I don't recommend that you have an implied trust because I personally don't think that it will hold up in court compared to an express trust. The next category that I want to tell you guys about is statutory versus non-statutory. So a statutory trust is a trust that is registered in the state, okay? And because it's created in that specific state, it has all of the state statutes. So you know how your state has codes and statutes, which they consider the law. Well, usually they would embed that. And when I say they, I mean attorneys, they would embed those state statutes inside of your trust, which means that the state has jurisdiction over your trust and they can regulate your trust, okay? So with that type of trust, you can only use it in the state that you actually established or created it, okay? So the other type is non-statutory. With non-statutory, it's outside of the jurisdiction of the state that you created it. So it's operating under common law. Okay. So wherever there's a common law legal system, you can operate that trust. So in the United States, it's in all 50 states and the territories, they have common law legal systems. So you can operate it in the, in the entire nation. And with a non-statutory, you don't register it, which is good because it remains private and not public. And with a non-statutory, you can, like I said, use it anywhere that you want. The good thing about a non-statutory trust is that because it's not regulated by the state, your local court systems in that state are not competent enough to carry a case for a non-statutory trust. So generally, your trust has to go to a higher court system, which is a federal court system, okay? So the next category that I want to talk to you guys about is revocable versus irrevocable. So every single trust is either or. It's either revocable or irrevocable. So what revocable is when the grantor is able to revoke things that's in the trust, okay? So they have revocability. So if they were to put property in the trust, they can take it out. If they wanted to terminate the trust, they can. If they wanted to remove beneficiaries or trustees, they can. And if they wanted to make amendments to the trust, they can. The problem with a revocable trust is that it can be changed by the person who created it. And because it can be changed, if it were to end up in litigation, the judge can decide to pierce through that trust and force you to produce the trust in court, meaning that you would have to bring, your entire estate to the court system, which will then convert it into a public trust versus private. It won't be able to maintain its privacy after that. And everyone is going to know who the parties involved, mainly the beneficiaries, and the net worth or the assets in the trust. So that type of trust, it doesn't really protect you in when it comes to litigation or when it even comes to creditors trying to go after your estate. On the contrary, you have an irrevocable trust. An irrevocable trust is a trust where the grantor has irrevocability. So what does that mean? That means that the grantor or the person who created it, they cannot take back property from the trust. They cannot terminate the trust. They cannot make any changes to the trust. And they cannot change or remove the beneficiaries or trustees. The grantor for that type of trust has no power and no control, okay? So because the grantor has no power and control, if you were to end up in litigation, since the person who established it can't make any changes, the judge is going to decide, typically, in order to uphold contract law, they're going to decide not to pierce through through that trust, okay? So that means that you can maintain your privacy for that type of trust. That is what we call the bulletproof trust, right? That's the best type of trust. That's the highest form of a trust that you can have. So if you're going to create a trust, you want to create the best type of trust, okay? So how do we create a trust? First, you're going to determine what type of trust you want to create, okay? So I just gave you some different, categories when it comes to trust. So I'm going to briefly tell you the trust that I recommend, right? I recommend that you have an express trust. You want it in writing. I recommend that you have a complex trust, which means that it's longer in nature and it's not short or simple. I recommend that you have a discretionary trust, meaning that you as the trustee can make any type of discretionary decisions that you want to make that's not spelled out inside of the contract. And I recommend that you have a non-statutory trust so that you can use it all over the nation, right? So let's just say that you were investing in, let's just say you set up the trust in Georgia, but you wanted to pick up property in California. You can do that with a non-statutory trust. But if you were to create the other type of trust and you set it up in Georgia, you can only use it in Georgia. So you don't want those type of limitations. And then the last category that I recommend is for you to have an irrevocable trust, okay? So I'll talk about that briefly. Next, what you want to do is you want to determine the trust name, okay? What are you going to name your trust? So you can name your trust whatever you want. You can put your initials on it. You can name it, 123 Mickey Mouse Street Trust. You can name it whatever you want. You can name it after your family name. The only thing that you want to avoid is naming it after yourself, okay? So do not, if your name is John Doe, please do not name the trust John Doe Trust, okay? Because the entire point of us actually creating a trust and operating a trust is so that we can maintain our privacy, so that we don't have to continue to use our personal name and social security. And now we can utilize this entity and we can use, the trust and the EIN for the trust so that we can maintain obscurity, right? We don't have to let anyone know that we own this property or that we have, this type of investment, okay? So when you're naming the trust, don't name it after yourself. That's first and foremost. Two, you can pretty much, there's no limitations onto what you can name it. So if you're naming like a business, then you can use the abbreviations LLC, you can use company, you can use co, you can use corp, you can use any of those phrases. And typically for like family trust, they use dynasty, legacy, things like that. The next thing that you want to do is you want to appoint a grantor. So if you are creating an irrevocable trust, you do not want to be the grantor because the grantor has no power and no control. You want to be the trustee. So you're going to appoint someone else to be the grantor of your trust. That other person can be either a family member. So it could be a sibling, it could be a grandparent, a parent, a neighbor, a coworker, anyone who is at least 18 and older and able to actually notarize the trust with you, okay? So the next thing is that you want to appoint yourself as the trustee, okay? So you want to have all of the control and you want to be the one operating your trust on a day-to-day basis, okay? So you're going to be the trustee of your trust. After that, you are going to appoint the beneficiaries. So typically the beneficiaries can be, and all of these entities, all of these positions can be entities or natural persons, okay? So with the beneficiaries, you can either make the beneficiary another trust, which I'll discuss in a little bit, or you can make it your children, right? Right, people. After that, you are going to choose a successor. So the successor is the person who's going to take over after you, okay? So the successor is a successor trustee because you have to understand that your trust is going to outlive you. The trust is going to last 100 years and you very well may not last 100 years. So you have to have things in place to where if anything were to happen to you, as far as if you become incapacitated, if you expire, if you decide to resign, then there's someone who's able to pick up where you left off and they're able to continue to operate the estate, okay? So that person is the successor trustee. They do need to be qualified for the position. They do need to accept the position and actually want to operate a trust, okay? So after that, you're going to create the trust agreement, okay? So you're going to create your contract. Like I said, at the end, I will show you what a contract looks like. And after that, you are going to get it notarized, okay? So your trust indenture does need to be notarized by the grantor and the trustee. So you are going to sign in front of a notary and the grantor is also going to sign in front of a notary. After you have notarized your trust is legal and you can now operate your trust, okay? Which is a beautiful thing. So what's the first thing that you want to do when you begin to operate the trust? Well, the first thing you want to do is open up a bank account, okay? So you're going to actually have a board meeting to actually document that you're opening up a checking account or a savings account or both for the trust. And then you're going to go down to the bank and you're going to provide them with your certificate of trust, which is the proof of identity that the trust actually exists. Because remember, our trust is private, it's not registered. So how is it that the banker is going to know that this is actually a legal entity? So you're going to give them the certificate of trust, which is a notarized form letting them know all the details of the trust as far as the name, the grantor, the trustee, the address, the EIN number, things like that. Okay. And then with that in the EIN, they're going to allow you to open up a bank account. And what you're going to do is you're going to fund your trust fund. Okay. So with however much you want, generally some of these banks, they have a minimum of $100. So let's just say that you're funding it with $100, right? So now what you're going to do is you're going to execute a promissory note, because you have to understand that that $100 came from you, right? And you need to be paid back. So you put that $100 into the trust estate, and you're going to fill out a promissory note saying that the trust is going to pay you back the $100 plus interest in, 6 months. And after that, then you are going to start transferring assets into the trust. That's the most important thing, right? The most important thing is for you to actually physically put the assets that you want to protect into the trust. I've seen it so many times where people forget this step, and then something happens and the asset wasn't protected when it could have been, okay? So don't sleep on that. So what does transferring of assets look like? Well, let's just say that you have your primary residence and is in your personal name. Well, what you want to do is, because that house is in your name, you want to take it out of your name because it can end up in probate. So you are going to do a quit claim deed, and you're going to deed it over from your personal name into the trust. And then that house is gonna now be in the name of the trust. Okay, so that asset is officially inside of the trust, and now the trust is going to be financially responsible for that asset because it belongs to the estate now. So what does that look like? Well, the trust is going to be now paying the mortgage. The trust is going to now be responsible for the utilities, the maintenance, and taxes. Okay, so that's what operating a trust looks like, right? Operating a trust actually looks like, dealing with any of the financial obligations or responsibilities, and maintaining the assets within the estate and growing the estate. So investing the trust funds. Okay. So the number one reason why you want to actually set up a trust is for asset protection, which is what we're talking about, right? And for you to remain private, or for your estate or your net worth to remain private, right? You don't want things in your personal name because you can be liable for those things. And I will give you some examples. So for example, a trust can protect you from lawsuits, from foreclosure, from probate, from divorce, from bankruptcies, from heavy taxations, right? So I'll go through some of these. So the first one is lawsuits, right? So let's just say that let's just say you have a rental property, right? And you have a tenant in there, that tenant has a slip and fall. Well, guess what they can do? They can sue the landlord. Who is the landlord? The landlord is you, because you have that rental property in your personal name. Or let's just say that that rental property is in an LLC. Well, they can go to the Secretary of State's website and they can look up who the owner of that LLC is, right? Because it's public records. And so once they go and see that the authorized member of that LLC that owns that house is you, then you become liable, because an LLC is limited liability. So it doesn't mean that you have no liability. It means that your liability is limited. Okay. So with that being said, if they end up suing that LLC for that slip and fall, then what could happen is, if you lose the case and there's a judgment and you're not able to fulfill that judgment, the judge can pierce the corporate veil. The corporate veil is protection that you have, which is that limited liability. So they can pierce through that protection and go after the authorized member, which is you. If they go after you personally, that means that any assets that you have in your personal name is up for grabs. So whatever money you have in your personal checking account, they can garnish your entire account, right? If you have a house or a vehicle in your personal name, they can seize those assets and force you to liquidate it. So you don't want that to happen. So what you want to do is you actually want these properties or assets, right? So your LLC is an asset. You want that to be owned by a trust, primarily a business trust. And that house where the slip and fall happened, that's an asset. You want that asset to be owned by a trust, okay? Or at least owned by an LLC that's owned by a trust, okay? So that will protect you, like I said, from lawsuits. Another example is divorces, right? A divorce is a transfer of wealth, okay? So that is also a lawsuit between two spouses. And with that situation, in a divorce, the only thing that can be included in a divorce is assets or debt that is in the personal name of those individuals, right? So, for example, if you were to have a trust, and let's just say that you had, you know, 2 properties in that trust. Well, those 2 properties cannot be included in your divorce. So only the properties in your personal name or in your spouse's personal name can only be included in the divorce, okay? So those properties that you have under a trust are protected because the divorce, like I said, is between the individuals, and the trust is a separate entity from the individual. So they cannot pull the trust into that divorce, okay? So that is a beautiful way to protect yourself. Another way that you can, that a trust can protect you is from heavy taxation, right? A lot of us, we are giving away half of our income to the IRS. And so you want to be able to utilize trust where you can actually determine what is considered income and what is not considered income. So for example, let's just say that you were, you know, trading crypto, right? And so normally you would have to pay for capital gains, but that money, that capital gains is going to be transferred into your trust. And then you as a trustee can determine if that money is considered income or not. And if it's not considered income, then it becomes a non-taxable event, okay? Another thing is using very specialized trusts in order to reduce your taxation. So one of the trusts that I teach about is a 508c1a ministry trust. With that trust, it is exempt from paying federal taxes because of the separation between church and state. So it's actually, it has a mandatory exception to not having to file for a 501c3. So what that means is you can actually donate your, a portion of your income to your ministry trust, and then you will reduce your taxes. So what I mean by that is, let's just say that you're making $100,000 on your W-2 job, right? Well, what you can do is you can donate up to $60,000 of that money to your ministry trust. And then you would only be taxed on the rest, which is the $40,000. So instead of you being taxed on 100% of your income, you're only taxed on 40% of your income because you donated the other 60. So do you know how much money that you will be saving on taxes? Another thing is that, another thing is property taxes, right? So with this type of trust, you can actually be exempt from sales taxes, city taxes, county taxes, property taxes. So you could be saving a lot of money, thousands of dollars on your property taxes, which is a beautiful thing. All right, so let's talk about probate. Probate is something that we're all going to have to go through if we don't have our affairs in order. So you want to be able to have your affairs in order so that you or your family doesn't have to go through probate. So probate is where the state issues you an estate. Okay, so if you were to expire, and let's just say that you only had a will, well, that means that your will is, 1, going to end up in probate, and 2, the state is going to issue you an estate and put all of your assets inside of that state issued estate. Okay. So if you had a house, if you had a car, if you had, you know, a bank account with money in it, all of that stuff goes inside of the estate now. Okay. And what will end up happening is your estate now needs to, one, be represented by an attorney. So that's attorney fees. It needs to be represented by or inside of probate court. So that's court fees. And another thing is, if you were to pass away and you had debt, all of that debt will then have to come out of your estate too. So if you had credit card debt, if you had student loan debt, then all of that debt is going to be paid out of your estate. Then the probate attorney is going to get what they are, you know, what they're going to get. And then the court fees is going to get what they're going to get. And whatever's left over is what your family gets. Okay. So that's their inheritance, whatever's left over. And generally, it's a very rough process for your family. It can last a long time. I've seen years, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, because family, you know, they can begin to fight, or they are trying to save the assets and they can't because the debt is just too high, right? And so sometimes they're forced to liquidate the assets just to cover the debt, which is a sad thing, because now they can't keep grandma's house because, you know, her Medicaid bills was too high. So you don't want that to happen. You want to have your affairs in order, and that means that you want to actually create your own estate, okay? And so the way that you do that is by creating a trust. A trust is the only thing that can prevent you from going to probate. And what that looks like is, if you were to create a trust and that house, that car, that money was inside of the trust, then if you didn't wake up tomorrow, there is no transfer that needs to happen, and your family would completely avoid probate. And all of your debt dies with you. So that student loan debt, that credit card debt, they cannot go after your trust, because your trust is a separate entity from you. So that debt dies with you. So you want to put yourself in a position to where you have your affairs in order, and you don't want to do your family a disservice by dragging them through probate. Okay. And like I said, a will is not good enough. So let's go through the wealth building formula. Okay. So with the wealth building formula, there's 3 pillars here. The first one is structure. The second one is credit. The last one is invest. So let's go through structure. The structure that I recommend is for you to have these 3 different types of trusts. For you to have a business trust, a private family trust, and a tax exempt trust. All right, so let's start at the top with the business trust. With the business trust, you can either operate it 2 ways. You can operate it as a holding company, or you can operate it as a regular business. So let's just say you had an e-com business or an Amazon store or something like that. You can set up a business trust and you can run your Amazon store through the business trust, okay? Or let's just say that you already have a pre-existing business, which is a corporation or LLC. Then what you can do is you can utilize the business trust as a holding company. So it's going to be non-operational, and it's going to be used to actually hold those assets. So you're going to have to do an amendment with the Secretary of State to remove yourself as the owner. And now you're going to put the business trust as the owner of those assets. So because an LLC is a pass-through entity, whatever income that LLC generates, and it's going to continue to operate as normal, that money is going to flow into the business trust. So the LLC is now going to be responsible for a zero tax liability, because the money was passed through to the authorized member, which is the business trust. So now that the money, let's just say it's 100,000, is at the business trust level, what you're going to do is you're going to do your normal deductions. So the business trust is a for-profit entity. It is taxed very high. So it's taxed at 38%. Okay. And so you need to ask yourself, do you want to pay 38%, or do you want to utilize the tax advantages that are offered to you? So if you do want to utilize those tax advantages, then what you're going to do is you're going to do your normal deductions for businesses, right? So out of that 100,000, let's just say that you're deducting 30,000, right? So now you've done your normal tax deductions, you now have a remainder of 70,000. So now you have to pay 38% on 70,000. But what a business trust can do is they can actually distribute those funds to the beneficiary. So now that you've distributed the 70,000 to the beneficiary, your tax liability for the business trust is 0, okay? And that 70,000 is now sitting at the private family trust level because the beneficiary of the business trust is the private family trust. Remember, you can have entities that are the actual beneficiaries of other entities, okay? So that 70,000 is now sitting at the private family trust level. What are you going to do? You are going to do your deductions, right? So at this level, you are going to do any deductions that are associated with the family. So that's, you know, tuition, groceries, you know, mortgage, anything like that, any of those expenses, okay? So at that point, you are going to want to expend as much as possible, okay? So of that 70,000, let's just say that you spent 50 of it. So now there's 20,000 left. So at this level, you have to actually pay 38% on, or pay taxes of 30% on that 20,000. So what you can do is you can actually, in order to reduce your taxes even more, you can donate that 20,000. So you can donate it to the tax exempt trust, which is the ministry trust. And at that level, at the private family trust level, now that you've donated whatever was left over, instead of paying 38%, then you have a 0% tax liability. And at the ministry level, you are exempt from federal taxes, right? Because you're receiving a donation, not income. So because you're receiving a donation, you pay 0 taxes on donations, okay? So now that 20% is sitting at, or that 20,000 is sitting at the ministry trust level, and at that point you can use those funds for investment, you can use those funds for philanthropic endeavors and charity, and you can also borrow against it. So you as a trustee can take out loans from the trust, and you don't have to pay taxes on loans. So if you needed to access some of those funds, you can just issue yourself a loan, okay? So so that's the structure. Now let's move on to credit, okay? All right, so with credit, what you want to do is you want to build trust corporate credit with the business trust, because you want to be able to leverage that type of entity, and you want to be able to leverage another credit profile, right? Because your personal credit, you know, usually you get like lower lines of credit compared to a business. A business usually gets higher lines of credit. That's one. And then 2, you can leverage 2 credit profiles versus 1. Okay. So you want to start establishing trust corporate credit so that you can use that credit as a down payment to invest and to pick up assets, okay? Another thing that you qualify for is grants. Because you have a nonprofit within your structure, you can qualify for grants, and then you'll be able to, you know, use those funds appropriately in order to advance your ministry trust. So now, let's move on to invest, right? So these are the 2 investments that I recommend. I recommend an index universal life insurance policy and real estate. So with an index universal life insurance policy, you're actually going to be putting yourself in a position to where you're paying yourself first. And that's what you want to do, because right now, the way that you are operating, you are not paying yourself first, you are paying yourself last. So typically the way that process works is we get our, you know, our paychecks, right? And so once we receive our paychecks, Social Security already took theirs, Medicare already took theirs, the federal, you know, IRS already took theirs, 401k already took theirs, and whatever is left over is what's deposited into our checking account. And what do we do with that money once it it hits our bank, we pay bills, right? So we pay our mortgage, we put gas in our car, grocery, and all of these things, right? Our utilities, everything like that. And then whatever is left over is what we save, right? We either leave it in our checking account or we put it into a savings account or something like that. And so you are actually building wealth backwards, okay? You're building wealth backwards, which is not going to benefit you because you're not saving as much as you can. And so the way that you can actually save money faster or build wealth faster is by paying yourself first before you pay those bills. So if you get paid today, right? It's Friday, it's payday. Let's just say you got $5,000, right? With that $5,000, instead of you paying your mortgage, your grocery, and putting gas in your car, what you're going to do is you are going to pay yourself first by parking that money in your insurance policy, okay? So your IUL policy, it is a liquid asset. It is an asset. The insurance company sees it as an asset, okay? It's liquid, it's tax-free, and with an index universal life insurance, it actually mirrors the market, okay? So whatever the market is doing, the insurance company will match it and they will give you interest on whatever like the S&P 500 is doing, right? So let's just say that the S&P 500 is doing 10%. Then you actually, whatever you're putting into your policy, it's building cash value, okay? So let's just say you was to park that 5,000 into your IUL policy. Well, what if the market is doing 10%, then you're going to earn 10% on that $5,000, okay? That is extremely powerful because now you're going to be earning compound interest and you're going to be building wealth faster. The beautiful thing about an IUL policy is that you can actually take out a loan from the IUL policy, okay? And so it's not going to be taken out of your cash value. So your $5,000 is still going to remain in your policy and it's still going to remain in your cash value building compound interest, right? And you need that $5,000 in order to pay your bills. So you're going to take out a loan against your policy, and that money is going to come from the insurance company's money. It's not going to be taken out of your policy. So they're going to issue you a check for the $5,000 or whatever the highest amount that you're, eligible to receive. So let's just say it's $4,800. They're going to issue you a check for the $4,800, or it's going to go direct deposit into your bank account, and now you're able to pay your bills. So your $5,000 it's still sitting inside of your insurance policy, making 10% because the S&P 500 is doing 10%. And you just borrowed out $4,800 so that you can pay your mortgage, your utilities, and all these things. So instead of you paying your bills first and only being able to save $1,000 and putting the $1,000 into the policy, you paid yourself first and you put the $5,000, borrowed it back out, and then now you're able to cover your bills. So that is what is going to actually allow you to build wealth faster versus what you've been doing, okay? So now, the next thing that I want to talk to you guys about is real estate, right? Because you can put yourself in a position to where you can, use this money 2 and 3 times. And so what you want to do is, remember, we're building credit, okay? So you're establishing this trust corporate credit, and let's just say that you get a line of credit of $50,000, right? A credit card, $50,000. So what you want to do is you want to be able to strip that credit card, right? And you can do it through manufacturer spending. You can do it through other ways. And once you get that $50,000, the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to park it inside of your insurance policy. So now your cash value just went up by $50,000 and it's going to be earning compound interest. Then you're going to borrow those funds out, that $50,000, you're going to borrow it back out. And now what you're going to do is you're going to put it as a down payment for real estate. So you're going to buy an investment property. Usually with these investment properties, you only have to put 20% down. Sometimes it's 15, sometimes it's 10. So that $50,000 is the 10% down payment that you need for that piece of real estate. Okay, so now you've gotten a mortgage for, 85%, and you put 15% down, and you just acquired that real estate property for 0 down, right? Because you used a credit card and you used a mortgage, a loan. Okay, so those two assets are now the assets that are going to be the first, two assets in your trust, because you want to be able to put yourself in a position to where your trust is generating its own income. You don't want to be pouring your W-2 income into the trust. You want the trust to self-sustain itself, to multiply, and to, to grow, because the whole point is for you to be building generational wealth, okay, for it to last generations. So how do you transfer the wealth, right? We are so focused on building the wealth. We're so focused on getting the $1 million. We're so focused on acquiring the assets, right? The houses and all this stuff. But we never stop and think, how am I going to transfer this house? How am I going to, transfer this car or this 6 figures in the bank, right? And so you have to ask yourself that question. And what you want to do is you want to put yourself in a position to where you own nothing but control everything. I'm going to say it again. You want to put yourself in a position to where you own nothing but control everything. So ownership is definitely not the goal. It's stewardship, right? You want to control the assets, because at the end of the day, the asset is going to outlive you, right? You are going to be, dead and gone, and that house is still going to be in the same position. Right? So if that asset is going to outlive you, if the trust is going to outlive you, then you want to control it during your lifetime. That is the goal. Okay. And so that's what stewardship gets you. The next thing when it comes to you transferring wealth is that each trust is going to have or create trust certificate units, or TCUs, okay? And so trust certificate units are the same thing as stock certificates. So where stock certificates represent ownership in a company, trust certificates represent beneficial interest in a trust. Okay, so the TCUs are going to go to your beneficiaries, and they're going to represent beneficial interest. So for example, let's just say that your trust, has a distribution of 10,000. Well, if I have 20 TCUs, then that means that I'm going to get $2,000 out of that 10,000. Okay, so that is what is represented, right? So the amount of assets or beneficial interest you have is equivalent to how many TCUs you hold within the trust, okay? Another thing is preservation. Preservation is super important when it comes to a trust, because you want to be, in the position to where, one, you don't want your beneficiaries to be spendthrifts, right? You don't want them to make the wealth disappear. We've seen it so many times where families, by the 3rd generation, their wealth is gone. And so you want to have provisions inside of the trust to avoid that from happening. And you want to also have provisions to where you are preserving the wealth, okay? And so the way that you're going to do that is by utilizing the insurance, okay? So like I said, you want to be able to take out an insurance policy, and that policy is going to be owned by the trust. The policy the trust is also going to be the payer of that policy, and the trust is going to be the beneficiary of that policy. And the trust is going to take out a policy on every single human asset associated with that trust. So you are the trustee, you're a human asset, you're a human capital, you're a human resource, right? That's the way you need to see yourself. And the beneficiaries are as well. So the trust is going to take out a policy on you and the beneficiaries, okay? So in the event that something happens to you, the trust needs to be compensated for that loss. So if anything were to happen to you, that death benefit for your insurance policy is going to go to the trust. And that is what's going to replenish the trust, okay? Replenish the estate. So that's a good thing. Another thing is that the trust, you're going to want to put provisions inside of your trust to where the trustee takes out an insurance policy on every single beneficiary that is born into the trust. Okay, so that's your grandchildren's children. Okay, so once that child is 30 days old, they're eligible to receive a to be taken out a IUL policy. Okay, and at that point in time, the trust is going to do the application and insure that baby. All right, and so it's a beautiful thing for the beneficiary to be insured, because let's just say that, you know, fast forward into the future, that beneficiary turns 18 years old and they want to buy their first car, right? So what is going to happen is generally they're going to go to the dealership and they're going to, you know, run their credit, take out a loan for $30,000. They're going to start getting into a car note, paying $500 for the next 5 years, right? Or what they can do is instead of going through that entire process, making the dealership rich, what they can do is they can go within and they can go to the trust estate and they can borrow funds from the trust estate. So the trustees and the beneficiaries are eligible to receive loans from the trust and give loans to the trust. So now that beneficiary is going to actually request a loan for the $30,000 so they can go buy their car cash. And what the trustee is going to do is they're going to issue or execute a promissory note representing that beneficiary is going to pay the trust $350 a month. They're going to be charged 2% interest for the next 5 years. Okay, so now the trust is actually receiving this 2% interest, which is good, is aiding in preservation. But let's just say that the beneficiary decides to default on that loan and doesn't pay back the trust. Well, what is going to happen? Well, it was actually a risk-free loan because the money did not come from the trust estate, right? It didn't come from the trust fund. The money actually came from the beneficiary's life insurance policy. So what the trustee did was they borrowed against the cash value, and they borrowed that $30,000. So that $30,000 came from the insurance company's money. It wasn't taken out of the cash value for that beneficiary's insurance policy. Okay, so that $30,000 was then deposited into the trust fund, and the trustee issued out a check for that $30,000 to the beneficiary. So because the beneficiary defaulted on the loan, it's risk-free because that money is going to be paid back at the death benefit, you know, at the time of the death, right? So once that death benefit goes to the trust fund, then at that point in time, the trust is paid back. Okay, so that is another way that you want to empower yourself to where your money is continuing to make money. Okay, and you're actually preserving the wealth and growing the wealth versus, you know, making the wealth disappear. So these are the books that I recommend. I recommend What Would the Rockefellers Do? That's a really good book teaching you how to utilize trust and insurance, right? Which is what I've been telling you guys about. The second one is The Art of Passing the Buck, Volume 1 and 2. This book teaches you about trusteeship, how to operate a trust effectively. Family Wealth. This book teaches you also about how to utilize trust and insurance and how to build a family office. And the last one is The Complete Book of Trust, which teaches you about the different types of trust. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to empower you guys to set up a trust, right? To make this your new form of doing business and making profit, because it can actually help you. It can actually help you and protect you from a lot of problems dealing with, you know, protecting your assets or reducing your taxes. Okay, so you want to treat it like a big business. You don't want to treat it like, you know, a small thing, right? This is an entire estate that we're talking about, right? You are in the position to where you are, one, building generational wealth, but you are being a generational curse breaker, right? You are breaking the chains that are within your family. And now you're changing to the trajectory of your family, because now your children are, one, they're going to be raised as beneficiaries, but then you're also going to be teaching them how to take over, right? How to take over the trust estate, how to become a trustee. So I'm telling you, life is different once you are a trustee. I want to show you a video of one of my students that decided to become a trustee.
Well, kudos to you all. Again, Christina, it's been a wonderful experience. I've been looking at your videos on YouTube for a while, and there are a number of people offering trust these days, and I guess that's the big thing. Don't own anything, control everything. That kind of, I didn't say it correctly, but that is the sentiment. And so it seems like the playing field is being leveled now from the rich and people who weren't privy to this information. So thank you for being such a great asset to a community that didn't have this information. And you made it so simple. Thank you for the recordings. Thank you for the step-by-step instructions. Things that we can go back and look at. So we do appreciate you. And thank you, Mondo. That was a great explanation of infinite banking. I know a number of people are talking about that, but they make it so complex. And his presentation was nice and succinct and very informative. So this has been an overall great experience. I definitely will recommend you to others.
Perfect. So let's work together. I have a program teaching you guys how to set up the 3 trusts that I recommend: the unincorporated business trust, the private family trust, and the tax-exempt nonprofit ministry trust. So I have a course. The course has 42 video modules. So you are actually going to learn what is a trust. You are actually going to get the videos so that you can start setting up these trusts yourself. You can customize it. So all you have to do is download the templates, follow the videos so that you can set it up yourself, okay? And I will show you what that looks like. So you get lifetime access to the course. You get all the resources that we provide. So we show you how to actually have board meetings for your trust, how to file taxes for your trust, how to transfer your assets into the trust. And we provide you with all those templates. We provide you with the ebooks that we just mentioned earlier, so you get it in the ebook version. And then we also have a private Facebook community, and we have over 200 members where they have, already gone through the process. They're trustees, or they're, in the position that you're in. And so they feed off of each other, and we're able to help each other and be a resource to each other. So the course is $997. And then the next option is Done With You. So Done With You is where you can attend a workshop. It's 5 days. So you get 5 group Zoom calls. On Monday, we set up the business trust. On Tuesday, we set up the private family trust. On Wednesday, we set up the ministry trust, and we become ordained ministers for our trust. And then on Thursday, we do our board meetings and promissory notes so that we can go open up a bank account, and we start to establish business corporate credit. And then on Friday, we apply for our EINs, we transfer our assets, and we learn about infinite banking. So the next workshop is December 11th to the 15th, and it's going to be from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And so you get you still get lifetime access to the course, and you get lifetime access to the workshops. So we do them once a month. So you will get the recordings from the previous workshops, and then you'll be able to attend any of the future workshops. And then you get that hands-on assistance and that sense of security, knowing that your trust is set up the right way. So the workshop is $2,500. And then lastly is private sessions where you're not able to make the group Zoom calls, or you are, you have a complex structure where you have multiple businesses, multiple assets. And so you want that one-on-one to where I, set up the trust, you have the individualized support, but you still get access to the workshops and the course, and the private sessions are $5,000. So all you have to do is go to wealthytrustee.com. So this is the contact information if you guys have any questions. So I'm going to show you what the actual course looks like and what an actual trust looks like. and then we will get into some other stuff. So this is what the trust looks like. This is a simple template. So this business trust is 51 pages. So all of these are the provisions inside of the trust. This is what's going to actually protect you in court and protect your assets and your business. Okay, so you can customize it. Everything that you see in red is what you want to customize for your business or your family or whatever your individualized situation is. And this is the course. So this is the Wealthy Trustee program. Like I said, you have 42 video modules. So first you're going to learn what a trust entity is. Then you're going to learn how to set up the ministry trust. Then you're going to learn how to set up the private family trust. And so in these video modules, I break down every single paragraph. So you just saw that the business trust is 51 pages. So I break down every single paragraph so that you can actually understand and learn the contents of the trust so that you can operate it the right way. Then you learn how to set up the business trust, some tax strategies because you have nonprofit and for-profit entities in your structure, and then asset protection. So how to actually transfer the property into the trust or the car or the insurance policy or the business, and then some wealth creation strategies on how to build credit for the trust, how to invest it in the stock market with index funds, and how to do infinite banking. And then you have all the resources that you need in order to operate your trust the right way and all of the ebooks. So now what I want to do is I want to invite my partner on here, Marvin Mitchell, so that we can learn about infinite banking and how to actually how to actually set up these types of policies that are owned by our trust. So Marvin, you have the floor. Let's see, remove myself.
There you go. How's everybody doing today? Everybody's muted, so I am going to start. I know that you just sat through a wonderful trust presentation, and let me tell you all, Christina is the GOAT when it comes to trust. She is the best that I've seen. Let me tell you, I paid myself personally $45,000 for a trust, and it wasn't done right. And it wasn't 3 trusts. So for $2,500, to get a trust that's better than the trust that I bought for $45,000, you all want to make sure that you take advantage of that. I mean, I'm telling you, you will not find a trust. I'm talking about a single trust, not even irrevocable. You won't find a revocable trust from any attorney that you can get for under $2,500. It doesn't exist. So she's empowering you to empower your family, to get the templates, to get everything that's necessary to get this done. But one of the things that you want to do is you want to learn how to really structure all of your assets under the trust. And one of those assets is specially funded life insurance, you all. What I do is I'm a 17-year financial advisor, top 1% in the industry. I go around teaching people that the traditional system is broke. Before I get started, you all, there's a lot of people in this room today and a lot of cameras that are off. I understand the holiday is coming up tomorrow, but I at least want to see some of your face. So if you would be so kind as to turn on your camera so I can actually get some give and take some feedback, because I'm about to teach y'all something that can literally save you hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes and make you a lot more money without making a lot more money, just by simply changing the direction and changing how you're actually spending the money that you already have. So money makers are not afraid. Action takers, wealth creators are not afraid to turn on their camera. So let's just see who takes me up on that challenge. Might have some bonuses for the people who do. We'll see. So what I want to do, you all, I want to go ahead and just get right into it. I want to get right into what I call the path to prosperity. This is the road to millionaire status. Having the trust properly is a big part of that. But let me go ahead and share my screen. All right. So we're talking about the path to prosperity. All right. So the path to prosperity, the road to millionaire status. So if what you thought to be true about money turned out not to be true, when would you want to know about it? Hopefully now, right? Too many people, they want to know about it, but they just don't have the information. It's a lack of information. Because of the lack of information, they're following the traditional system, which is failing them, because there's a circle of knowledge in the universe, you all. You just got some of that information that you were not exposed to. If you got information today that you were not previously exposed to, put a 1 in the chat. Put a 1 in the chat if you got some good information from Christina so far today. All right, so there's a universe of knowledge. Now, within that, there are things that you know to be true. Like, for example, you know, hopefully, how to tie up your shoe. You know that to be true. You don't have to research it. You don't have to look it up. There are also things that you know that you don't know. I mean, there are things that you don't know. You know that you don't know those things. So if you know that you don't know those things, then you can actually look it up. You can go to YouTube University. You can find out on your own. But within this universe of knowledge, there's a lot of things. The rest of this space is things that you don't know that you don't know. And if you don't know that you don't know it, how do you look it up? If you don't know that you don't know it, how do you find it on YouTube? You can't. So our job is to help to expose certain things that are in your blind spot, because once you know them, once we expose them to you, you'll be much better off rather than relying on a traditional financial advice. So I got a question for you all. What color is a stop sign? Put it in the chat. Let's see if let's see how intelligent we all are in this room today. Let's start with a real tough question. What color is a stop sign? Write it in the chat. Don't be afraid to get it wrong. Those who actually guess are more involved. I'm not trying to trick you, I promise you. All right, cool. All right, cool. Some people are like, red and white, you're not gonna get me. All right, good. You're right, it's red. All right. How many sides? The next question, a little more difficult. How many sides does a stop sign have? James was ready. All right. I see you, Walter. I see you. Great participation. All right. It's more than 6 of you. Keep going. I love it. I love it. All right. You're right. And what do you do when you get to a stop sign? So you all are right. See, it's red. Got 8 sides. You stop when you get to a stop sign. Well, some of you roll, but you're supposed to stop when you get to a stop sign. And here's another easy one. What color is a yield sign? It's another easy one. All right. I love the explanations. Okay. See, you all are smart. But see, there's one thing that a couple of you got it right, because you probably saw this presentation. But there's one thing, you all, most of us said that a yield sign is red. I mean, yellow. But a yield sign is actually red and white, just like a stop sign. Now, I promise you, when you leave, when you're driving around on Thanksgiving tomorrow, just look outside. Every yield sign that you pass is going to be red and white. I know some of you might be thinking, but wait a minute, they must have just changed it, because I could have sworn it was yellow. They did change it. So you're right. Back in 1974. All right. So the yield sign hasn't been yellow predominantly since 1974. So if we pass by, now this is going to blow your mind. If we pass by a yield sign every day, but we still just subconsciously think it's yellow, is it possible things that we were taught about money to be true because we just so automatically assumed that it was true? Is it possible that those things that we've learned about money is also not true? That's why I said you should know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. There are things that are being taught to you that are not true. So the first time that you played tic-tac-toe, who won? Was it you, or was it the person that showed it to you? It was the person that showed it to you. Why? because the person that showed it to you, they understood the rules of the game. The only reason why you're not winning the money game is because you haven't been taught the rules of the game. So you have people, the government, who have a hands up on you. But as long as you learn those things, you can at least be on an equal playing field with them. And my goal today is to teach you how to at least be on an equal playing field with those who attempt to take your money away from you. See, the world has us in a system. We go to school, get good grades, hopefully, get student loans, go to college, get student loans, maybe get a grad degree, then get a job, pay back those student loans, saving your 401k, work into your 65, then you can retire, then you'll get taxed and you can live off of less money that you did when you were working. Now you can live the American dream. Well, guess what? Even that dream doesn't work because 70+% of people are running out of money. So there has to be something different. And the good news, there is something different, but you just have to be exposed to it. See, the problem is a lot of us think that we just have to go out and make more money in order to be successful. Now, making more money is important, but guess what? If you're making more money, but you're losing a lot of that money due to high interest and debt, you're losing a lot of that money due to opportunity costs because you don't know about the opportunity costs. You're losing that money due to overpaying and taxation. You're losing that money due to interest rates. Then you can keep making more money, but it's going to keep running out. That's why some of you are saying, how is it that I keep making more money, but I keep ending up in the same situation where it seems like I'm going from check to check, or I'm in a rat race, or it seems like I just can't get ahead, or it seems like I can't get more profit, or I get more profit and I don't know where it went. It's because you're overpaying in some of these things. Now I'm gonna give you an example of ways that you can just seal up that bucket and you're gonna be in a better situation. And I'm gonna tell you how that relates to an index universal life in a second, because it all relates. I just need you to bear with me, because if you don't understand the systems and the structures around why you do the IUL, you're just gonna be wasting money and putting money into the IUL and not using it correctly. So we want to make sure not only do you get the IUL protection, but we also have to make sure that you're using it correctly as well. If we can just seal up those holes, you'll make the money a lot slower. But guess what? Even though you make it slower, even if you made the money the same or slower, you're going to have more money because it won't be leaking out on the backside. And that's what we want from you. All right. So there are three types of people when it comes to money. Three different types of people. You have a debtor, saver, and a wealth creator. This is what the debtor does. This is the people who can't get ahead. They're constantly in the rat race. They're constantly taking 2 steps, 1 step forward and 2 steps back, 2 steps forward and 1 step back. They tend to stay the same. Why? Because they purchase debt to high interest, different things. They're consuming. That's not assets. They're buying liabilities. And then they try to pay themselves off and try to get back to zero. Then they repeat that cycle, and then they constantly go back to zero. And this is why they have student loans debt. This is why they have credit card debt. This is why they can't get ahead. In fact, they tell themselves, if I can at least get back to zero, I will be in a better financial situation. The problem is that you're striving for zero. That means you're striving to be broke. You're striving to be at zero. There are homeless people on the street that are at zero, but that doesn't mean they're in a better financial situation than you because they have no assets. We don't want to strive to just be broke. We don't want to survive. We want to thrive, right? So if you want to thrive, let me see you write that in the chat. Thrive. THRIVE. Make it easy for you. Write that in the chat if you want to thrive. Now, the next people are what I call the savers. The savers are the people who they save. And what do? And then they pay cash. They save, and then they pay cash. They continue to save and then they pay cash. The problem is that when they save, every time they pay cash, they're actually losing the forward momentum of their money, and they're not very efficient. Because when they spend their money, they don't just lose the money, they lose all of the money that they could have made on that money had they kept that money. So they have to rebuild that cash and then they spend it again, and then they have to continue to rebuild that cash, and then they spend it again. Now they are above water. They are better than the debtor. They are a saver, but they're not an investor. They're not a wealth creator. So the problem is they also don't get too far ahead. But what I want to do today is I want to teach you how to be called a wealth creator. This is what a wealth creator does. A wealth creator, they never stop the forward momentum of money. Their money just keeps going forward. It just goes. Uninterrupted compound interest, making their money work. They're going to put that into a trust, and they're going to allow it to just continue to compound over and over and over again. And they're going to recoup millions of dollars over their lifetime. When they go out and they buy something, they're going to buy it. But guess what? When they buy it, guess what they're going to do? They're going to buy it, and then they're going to pay themselves back. They're going to buy it, and then they're going to pay themselves back. See, this is how the life insurance works. This is how the index universal life works, you all. It works where you're building a cash value. The green line represents your cash value. When you borrow against your cash value, this is represented by the red line, and then you pay yourself back. But the good news is that unlike the banks, if you don't pay yourself back, nobody's checking your credit score. Nobody is reporting you. Nobody is making you pay it back. In fact, if you don't pay it back, guess what? It's not, they're not penalizing you. They're simply subtracting it from your death benefit in interest rate when you die. So I'm going to give you all a test. Let's just say you had $100,000 and you were earning 5% per year. $100,000, you're earning 5% per year. Your money is in the bank or in cash and you're earning 5%. 1 year later, I want you to write this in the comments. 1 year later, how much money do you have? You have 100,000 earning you 5%. What is the total amount that you have 1 year later? Write it in the chat. This is going to change your life, y'all. When you get this, when this clicks for you, it's going to change your life. I promise you. All right. We got one person that's not afraid to answer. Okay. We got a little bit more. Okay. The people who answer are the money makers in the room. The people who answer are going to be blessed with an abundance of wealth because they're not afraid to put themselves in the game. The people who stand on the sidelines, your money is going to be standing on the sidelines. So come on, y'all. Can't get it wrong. All right. You are all right. It's $105,000. $105,000. Now, this is the part that's going to blow your mind. Let's just say you had the $100,000 in the cash value life insurance policy, and it's earning you 5%. So I got $100,000 earning me 5%. But this time, I'm going to borrow $30,000 against my policy. So I'm earning $100,000 is earning me 5%. This time I borrowed $30,000 from my policy. 1 year later, how much money do I have? Got $100,000 earning me 5%, but this time I'm going to borrow $30,000 against my policy. 1 year later, how much money do I have? Write it in the chat. All right, keep going, keep going. Write it in the chat. Thank you for those who are participating. Some of y'all are afraid to get it wrong, but that's okay. So the correct answer, you all, is $105,000 still. Congratulations. Most of y'all got it right. Now, how does that work? How is it still $105,000 if you borrowed $30,000? Because you didn't actually take the money. You didn't actually take the money. You actually just borrowed against your money. So your money continued to grow as if you never touched it. And you know that if you don't pay it back, it's simply subtracted from the death benefit. Now, listen, if you do pay it back, great. You just increase your ability to borrow more in the future. So if you make the same, if your account grows the same, whether you borrow against it or you don't borrow against it, should you borrow against it or should you not borrow against it? What do you think? Should you borrow against it or should you not borrow against it? Write that in the chat. Should you borrow against it or should you not borrow against it? Absolutely. You should borrow against it. Why should you borrow against it? Because it's making the same money whether you borrow against it or you don't. The problem is most people get these index universal life policies and structure it even the right way, but they never borrow against it and they never use it. And because they never use it, the problem is they didn't even take advantage of it. You got to remember, life insurance, you all, is not an investment. This does not replace your stocks. This does not replace your real estate. It does not replace any of those things. Properly structured life insurance is a funneling method for you to funnel your money through to make your money work for you 2 to 3 times off the same dollar. So when you borrow against it, that's how you make your money work 2 to 3 times off the same dollar. But if you never use it, you lose the main advantage that you have with the index universal life or with the whole life policy. So you all are smart. You got it. So we want to create pregnant money. We want our money to work for us multiple times. We want to create money babies. So what type of life insurance do you choose? Look, I like index universal life, but I also like whole life if it's properly structured the right way. And I'm going to show you in a second, how do you properly structure that policy? We want to use the life insurance for our life, not just waiting for our death. Most people buy death insurance. We're buying life insurance. So the way that whole life works, I'll start with whole life. The way that whole life works is just a fixed rate of return. So let's just say it's 4 to 5%. You know it's fixed, can't lose 4 to 5%. The good news is you know what you're getting. The downside is you are getting lower rates of returns than if you got index universal life. The good news is that you can borrow from whole life quicker. Depending on what you're looking to do, you can borrow from whole life quicker, right? Now, index universal life, the way it works is, let's say if you have a cap means maximum gain. Let's say the most you can make is 12%. What that means, if the market goes up by 6, you can make 6. If it goes up by 10, you can make 10. If it goes up by 12, you can make 12. If it goes up by 15 or 20, the most you can make is 12 because that is your cap. But if the market goes down, you are guaranteed that you cannot lose. So if you think of it this way, it's kind of like going to the casino and they with 100,000 and they say, hey, if you win, we'll give you $15,000. But if you lose, we'll give you your $100,000 back and say, thank you, come back again. I think we all would go to the casino if that was the case, if we knew that we won every single time. That's literally how index universal life works. You make money when the market goes up, but if the market goes down, you stay the same. You don't lose. So it has a higher rate of return potential. However, in most cases, you can't borrow as much from it right away. Also, term might be appropriate in some situations, in some cases, if you have a whole lot of debt as a portion of what you're doing, but not fully what you're doing. So they all have a purpose. So what I want to do is I want to kind of show you all really quick. I'm going to show you all how to properly structure this and give you a really quick lesson on life insurance. So let me pull this up really quick. If y'all are getting some good information so far, put some fireballs in the comments for me. Because we are about to give y'all, the people who are still here, you all are about to get some fire information that 95% of agents don't teach you because they don't want you to know, because if you know this, they'll get 70% less commission. And most of your money would go to you instead of the insurance company. So they don't want you to know this information that I'm about to teach you right now. Okay, let me pull this up on my screen. So 2 charts I'm going to show you all really quick is going to make a dramatic difference for you. The first screen is this screen right here. What this shows you, this is the true cost of paying cash. Remember how I taught you there's debtors, there's savers, and there's wealth creators. So if you're somebody who just pays cash, let's just say you were saving $10,000 a year, earning you, and you were earning 8% over 30 years. Let's say you drained the tank 5 times, and it took you, every time you drained the tank, remember you had to refill it. So now you have to refill that tank. In fact, you all are wealth creators. Let's say you were saving $20,000. That's not even $2,000 a month. You all can do that. I want y'all to see the difference, you all. The only thing you did differently is structure yourself into an index universal life instead of saving, paying cash. That's what the red represents. You're saving, then paying cash. This is why most people don't retire with more than like the $250,000 to $300,000. Not because they didn't make the money in their lifetime. It's because they continue to drain the tank over and over and over, and they had to catch up every time. With a wealth creator, they kept making their money grow like a snowball. Look at the difference, you all. Same savings, same interest rate, same number of years. The difference is one person kept draining the tank, the other one structured it the way I'm telling you. One person has $2,466,917, mostly tax-free. The other person only has $332,910. That's a difference between $2,134,008. Can you see why it is very important for you all to learn how to save in a way where you become a wealth creator and not just a saver? Can you all see that? This is going to change your life. I'm telling y'all, this is the difference between millions of dollars for you and your family, for generations upon generations upon generations. When you combine this strategy with the trust strategy, it is a legacy builder. It is a generational curse breaking type of tool. So I want to show y'all a really quick lesson on life insurance. Let me do that now. All right. Okay, so when you get your life insurance, there are some certain ideal characteristics that you want. Okay, so first off, you're gonna want that cash value to be tax deferred, which means you don't pay taxes on it while it's growing. You also want it to be tax-free when you take it out. How many of y'all want tax freedom? You also want a competitive return. You also want very high contributions. You want to be able to save what you want to save. You want deductible contributions would be nice. Collateral opportunities would be nice, which means the ability to borrow against it and buy more things. You want it to be safe. You don't want to lose, no loss provisions. You want guaranteed loan options, which means if you lose your job, nobody can tell you that you can't get approved to borrow against your own money. You can't do that with a mortgage. You want unstructured loan payments, which means you pay it back when you want to pay it back, if you want to pay it back, not on their time schedule, but on your time schedule. You want liquidity, use, and control of your money, which means that you control the money. You don't have to wait until you're 59 and a half like a 401k. You can use it to fund a business much earlier if you want to. There's no required minimum distributions, which means there's nobody forcing you to take money out of this account. And you also want additional benefits. So this is how you do this, you all. This is how it works. You build up the collateral. This is your cash. This is your cash value that you're building up. You go you actually build up that cash value, and then you use that to go and buy. When you borrow against it, which means you borrow from the insurance company, they take a lien against your cash value. You use that money to go out and buy an asset. Then there's non-structured payments back to the insurance company. Remember, you don't have to pay it off right away. If you don't, it's subtracted from your death benefit. So permanent life insurance, when designed and utilized properly, can provide stable growth, cash value collateralization, guaranteed loan access, no annual tax on growth and death benefits, and also additional benefits. So let's just say that you can get this right here, pay attention if you haven't paid attention to anything else, because this is gonna explain to you how this actually works, the structure. So let's say I had a $500,000 death benefit. $500,000 death benefit. Now, I could pay the minimum amount of premium for that death benefit, or I could pay the maximum amount of premium for that same death benefit. Now, my question for you is, who do you think determines the minimum amount that you can pay into an insurance policy in order to get that $500,000 death benefit? Write it in the comments. Who do you think determines the minimum amount of death benefit for the minimum amount of premium for that $500,000 death benefit? All right. I appreciate you guessing. I don't care if you're right or wrong. I celebrate you just for not being afraid to give an answer. All right, you all. The correct answer is not you. Is actually the insurance company. The insurance company has actuaries who goes out and determines that based on your life expectancy and based on a lot of other factors, this is the least amount that we can charge you and still be profitable. Now, the next question is, who do you think determines the maximum amount that you can put into the life insurance policy? Who do you think determines the maximum amount? The most that you can put into a premium for that particular death benefit? Who determines it? Okay, I'm getting some good answers. I see you, I see the life insurance company. Neither one of those are correct yet. I want y'all to think, I want you to really think about this. If you saw one of my presentations, don't guess. But I want you to think about this. Who do you think determines the most amount that you can put into a life insurance policy? And there is the correct answer right there. Shout out to Sylvia. It is the government. Now, my question for you is, why would the government be concerned about how much money that you put into any product, especially life insurance? What does the government care about with your dollars more than anything else? Taxes. You see, back in the old days, millionaires would dump millions of dollars into life insurance because they knew that once they put it in, it would grow uninterrupted and it would avoid taxation. So the government had to come along and say, okay, you can design these things. There's an infinite ways that you can design these. But in the 1980s, they said, we got to create something else because we need more tax revenues. Therefore, we're going to create qualified plans. What qualified plans are is your 401ks on the job. It's the 403bs. It's your IRAs. What the government said is, we're going to let you save here and build up our own savings vehicle, because as your account grows, guess who else grows? Our tax revenue. Because when you pull that money out down the line, you're going to have to pay taxes, probably at a higher tax bracket when you have more money in your account. So who's really winning in that game? You or the government? The government, because the government is calculating how much money they're going to get in tax revenues off your dollars. And also, when you die, all of that money, if you don't have things protected in a trust, guess what? All of that money is going to have to be taxed as well before it gets to your beneficiaries. And they can have estate taxes, which is extremely expensive with taxes, right? So they created that. So now you had to get real expert advice from life insurance agents, not just basic advice, if you wanted to design your product the right way. Because if you overfunded that policy, it's called a MEC. What a MEC means is a modified endowment contract. A modified endowment contract is simply if you overfund that too much, more than what the death benefit allows, they're going to tax you the same way that they tax an IRA, 401k, SEP, or 403b. However, if you design it properly, you'll be okay. So the minimum, let's say if it's $500, and the maximum, let's say if it's $10,000, if you pay the minimum amount, which is $500 for a $500,000 death benefit, what type of insurance is that? Who knows? What type of insurance is that called when you pay the minimum amount of premium for that high death benefit? Anybody know what type of life insurance that's called? Going once, going twice, no guessers. It's called a term. It's called a term insurance, you all. So term insurance. Now, term is temporary. That's why they call it term. It is temporary insurance. Now, term does not have a cash value. Term only has a death benefit, and it expires after a certain amount of years. Most people think the insurance company make more off of permanent policies, but no, they actually make more money off of term because most people either expires or they cancel. Only about 3% of term life policies are ever paid out. The rest of it goes to profit for the insurance companies. But for permanent insurance, they know that all of that money has to go to the beneficiaries. Now, if you're going to pay $10,000, it better have some good benefits. For example, tax-deferred growth, tax-free distributions, competitive returns, high contributions, additional benefits, collateral opportunities, safe, no loss provisions, guaranteed loan options, unstructured loan payments, liquidity, use, and control of your money. Those are all of the things that you get when you fund this policy. But when you fund it, you want to fund it for the lowest amount of death benefit and the highest amount of cash value. So more of that money goes to you where you can borrow against it instead of going to the agent and instead of going to the insurance companies. So why don't more agents tell you about this? Because they get 70% less commission. And it is very hard to get a man to understand something that their wallet depends on them not understanding. They have families to feed, right? So with that being said, y'all, that is the 10-minute lesson on life insurance. That is why when you learn this method, it's going to give you hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars more over the course of your lifetime. Now, I'm going to show you really quick how I've used my wealth creation fund. Knowing what you know now, this is a 76-unit property that I bought. This 76-unit property, I partnered with some individuals. I got $100,000 for my policy. Use that as my portion of the down payment. I get about $4,000 a month for my portion on this, and I'm building equity on this. In fact, this property, we paid about $4 million for it. We just put it on the market for $5.5 million. This is my house in Atlanta. Same thing. I borrowed money from my policy to get the down payment for this particular house. I didn't even live in this house. This house is in Atlanta. I lived in St. Louis. So why did I get this house? I got the house because I rented it out as a luxury Airbnb for events, and it paid me over $20,000 a month. So I turned my liabilities into assets. I borrowed from my account to buy index funds, and I bought options. On one option play, I borrowed some money from my policy to get it, and I made a ton of money when GameStop actually went down, because I actually bought a put that it would go down. So I made money on the stocks. And if I would have lost, remember, I wouldn't have had to pay it back to my life insurance policy. It simply would have been subtracted from my death benefit when I died, plus interest. This is my actual Lamborghini. I bought the Lamborghini, $20,000 down payment. I bought with it. My plan was to rent it out. But actually, when I got it, I started making more money because people started joining my coaching program, because I guess people like to have signs of success. So I made more money by having this. People like to do hard money lending when they buy real estate. Well, instead of hard money lending, people were getting 16% loans. I said, well, what if I just gave them loans for 10 to 12%? And I actually wrote a note that if they didn't pay me back, I would just take over their property. I did that. So now I was making money off of my life insurance policy, and I was making money off of the loan, and I was paying back the life insurance to borrow and continue to repeat that cycle over and over and over. So John 8:32, somebody quoted that earlier. John 8:32 says, then you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. No longer do you have to keep following the traditional financial system that keeps you broke. No longer do you have to pay attorneys $35,000 and $40,000 for these trusts that you can get through Christina for less than $5,000 or even $2,500. No longer do you have to keep overfunding the 401k that's more benefiting the government than it's actually benefiting you. Now, don't get me wrong. I want you to save to the match, but anything over that, I want you to have tax freedom. No longer do you have to overpay in taxation. No longer do you have to be like the majority of people who follow people who are just trying to get out of debt and get to zero. You can be a generational curse breaker. If not for yourself, think about your family. Think about your kids. Think about your children's children. It is so important that you have a trust. I'm telling you, if you don't have one, you do not want to go through probate. Probate, I had a client who was in probate almost 2 years. Half of their estate was gone due to legal fees. And they couldn't even touch the money within that time frame that it was in probate. I had a person, a situation where, last thing I'll tell you, I have a person that was in a situation where he was married, and then he got a divorce, and then he married someone new, and they were married for 10 years. And he had children in the second marriage, but not the first marriage, but he forgot to change the beneficiary on the account. So the money was set to go all to his ex-wife, none for the new wife and the kids. So the new wife actually took the old wife to court, and they battled for like a year and a half. And eventually they settled to split the assets, but half of the money was paid in legal fees. You don't want kids fighting over your money when you're not there because you don't have the proper provisions put in place. You don't want frivolous people to come and attempt to sue you and take all of your assets because they think it's your money. You want to own nothing and control everything. You do that by having a proper trust. You do that by having a proper life insurance policy. So Christina told you how you can actually take advantage of her program. I want you to take advantage of her program. I will also give you a link to schedule a time with my team to set up your insurance policy. I have a financial firm, complimentary, because you're on this call. We will actually help you to set these policies up for your family. We will help you and coordinate with Christina to make sure these policies are set up in the name of your trust. We will do all of that for you complimentary. All you have to do is click on that link that's on the screen right now, wealthcreationcall.com, and we will get you scheduled. And again, this is complimentary. Normally it's $497 to meet with my team. We will waive that fee for the purpose of this webinar, the purpose of this call today. So hopefully we get an opportunity to talk to many of you. We are ready to help you to change some lives. Christina is willing to help you change your life. You have to take the action. So you met at this fork in the road. You can make a decision to do things the way that you've always done it, or you can make a decision to do something great for yourself and for your family. Which road are you going to take? Christina, it's back up to you. Thank you all. I definitely appreciate you all. Definitely appreciate you all listening to my portion of the presentation today. And so many people stuck around. So 37 of you stuck around. So I really appreciate you taking advantage of this information today.
Thank you so much, Marvin, for pouring into everyone on this call and for teaching us about infinite banking and how we could build wealth. We really appreciate that. So what I want to do is I want to open up the floor for questions. If anybody has questions, we have probably less than 10 minutes to answer any questions. I do see one question in the chat, Marvin. It says, what if you have life insurance? So what if they already have like a policy?
I would say get it reviewed, because just because you have life insurance doesn't mean that it's structured in the right way or the right type of insurance. So Are you sure it's the maximum efficient contract? Are you sure it's the lowest amount of death benefit for the highest amount of cash value? If you know for sure that it is, then great, stick with what you have. But I would still, it wouldn't hurt to get a second opinion.
Thank you so much. Do we have any other questions? You can raise your hand. You can come
I
off.
have a question.
All right, what's up?
Okay, so my question is, the way you structure the trust, what's the difference between that and like a pure trust, like a common law business trust? Is that the same as an express trust?
Yes. So like, okay, so I don't know at what point did you get into the presentation, but an express trust is a written trust. Your pure trust is a written trust. Your common law trust is a written trust.
That's what I thought.
It is. It's exactly the same. So the trust template that I provide you with is an unincorporated business trust, and it operates under the common law jurisdiction. So it is a pure trust, and the verbiage is in there.
Okay, so I have another question that's very, very important. If you have a person who's incapacitated, right? Let's just say, like, for instance, I have this scenario myself right now. It's a bit different because my mom ended up in the hospital. She doesn't have a trust set up. She doesn't have any formal arrangements to say that this is what I want done. This is who I want to take over my affairs and everything like that. She didn't pass away. She's just in the hospital, but she can't talk and she can't make any decisions, right? So I'm wondering now if I'm able to like if I'm legally become the conservator. I don't know if you know the term conservator, and guardian, if I'm able to create a trust in order to protect her assets in the event that she passes away.
Okay, so first and foremost for your mom, she needs like an advance directive and a power of attorney in order for you to like make decisions. So I don't know if you've already.
So the conservator is not the same as a power of attorney?
Are you asking me?
I'm asking, yeah.
Oh yeah, so it's different.
Oh,
So,
I see.
yeah, it's different. But in order for you to make like medical decisions for her because she's still alive. But the thing is, you will definitely still have to go through the court system in order to transfer her assets. So you cannot, you won't be able to transfer her assets without going to court. So you can, attempt to do it now while she's still living.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Hey Cliff, how are you?
Hello, everyone. Hope all y'all doing well this evening.
Hope you're doing well too. Nice to see you again, Cliff.
Indeed, always an honor. Just a quick question. You had spoke about the foreclosure earlier.
Yes.
Do your home has to be paid in full to enact that, or if you're still like making payments and have it in the trust, could it be possibly foreclosed on?
Yeah, so you can actually protect your property by putting it into an irrevocable trust. It will protect it against foreclosure in the event that your mortgage company wants to foreclose on you. So you wouldn't have the house paid in full because there wouldn't be any foreclosure unless the city was trying to foreclose for like taxes or trying to take the property for taxes. But if you have the property in an irrevocable trust, then you can protect that home from the creditors trying to come after you and actually, initiating a legal battle to take the property. So it'll be one, because your identity is protected, it'll be hard for them to serve the trust. And then two, they would have to take it to a competent court system. So it wouldn't be anything like local. It would have to go to the federal level if you had a common law court, if you had a common law trust and you were within that jurisdiction.
Indeed. And would the automobile have those same principles as well?
So with the automobile, it has to be paid off, or the lender or the lien holder, the loan has to be under the trust. So you would that car, if it's in your personal name right now, you would have to refinance it under the trust name.
Indeed. My last question is, the trust the same as the dynastical trust? They're all kind of just different names for them?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different names. So like how the previous lady said, pure
Okay.
trust, they call them common law trust, they call them Massachusetts trust, they call them, different things.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. We
You're welcome.
appreciate what you all do.
Thank you, Clef. Thank you so much. I do have some questions in the chat. Let's see what we have here. Can you please explain how you can operate a business out of a business trust? So a business trust can operate. So for example, like you can think about like a sole proprietor, right? So you as a sole proprietor, you can run a business without registering it. And then you are a sole proprietor and you are eligible, to receive income for that. So it's the same thing with a business trust, right? It's an entity and you can operate it like a business. It is a business. So as long as the verbiage is inside of the contract, then you can operate it the way that it's intended to be operated. Okay. So with a trust, you can run it as a regular business. So for example, if you, like I gave the example earlier, if you had an online business, right? If you have a restaurant, some restaurants are operated under business trust, right? So it just depends. They work simultaneously well with other entities, or you don't need those other entities, because you have to understand that a trust is superior to an LLC or a corporation, because it is those are statutory entities. They're regulated by the state. They can be shut down at any point in time, and you know that. So with the business trust, it can't, because you're operating in the private and you're allowed to do that. The next question is, can you add people to the trust if the primary dies? I'm not sure what that means. So if the primary, what? If the grantor dies? If the grantor dies, yes. If the trustee dies, then someone needs to take over the trust, and there's going to be a successor trustee, and you can always add new beneficiaries. Key is a key, K-E. Let's see. K-E. Do you have a question? All right, next, if you quit claim your house to the trust, what happens if the trustee defaults on the mortgage? So if the trustee defaults on the mortgage, then, then the mortgage company can very well initiate, foreclosure proceedings. So we just spoke about that. So it depends on, it depends on how far they go, if they're able to serve the trust, things like that. So I'm not saying that it's not going to happen, but I'm saying that it's very hard. It's very challenging for those creditors to go after the irrevocable trust. If it's not irrevocable, then it's easier for them to go after it, especially if it's a living trust.
Hi, I'm sorry. I wasn't able to unmute for whatever reason.
How are
I
you?
have a question in regards to the life insurance. I have a universal life, and I've had it since 2017. I had a car accident settlement. Am I able to deposit like majority of, like, say, like 20 grand into that and borrow from it at some point? Or is there still like a time limit that I will be able to start to borrow from that insurance policy?
That's a great question. So first off, you say a universal life. So I would want to know if is it just a normal universal life, like a variable? It's two different universal lives. You got a variable universal life, and then you got an index universal life. They do operate differently. So I don't know if you know that, but
yeah, I think it's a variable.
Okay. So the variable universal life is typically not going to generate super good cash value, because if it's variable, that means it varies. That means it's in the market. It does go up and down, whereas an index has a fixed component. So the problem with the variable universal life is that if the market goes down and you take a loan against that account, it could be called at any time and force you to add more money into the particular policy, which is a challenge. Depending on how that policy, even if it's an index universal life, depending on how that policy was structured, there are some ways that you can structure that allows you the flexibility to add more money in down the line. Most of them are not set up that way. And if you do end up putting that extra money into that particular policy and it's not structured that way, it would turn into a MET, which is a modified endowment contract, which then it becomes a taxable event. So I would actually absolutely get that policy reviewed, because it's definitely dangerous to just dump money into that policy without knowing if it's going to be a taxable event down the line.
Okay, so if it was an index and it was to that point, like, is there, you're saying like if it was set up, if it was structured in a certain way, are they all structured differently?
Yes, they could be structured very differently. There's literally hundreds of ways to design these types of policies. So for example, if I'm structuring the index universal life and you're telling me, well, I only have $30,000 to put in this year, but I'm expecting some money down the line, I want the ability to put in 70,000. If you know that from the beginning, you can structure it that way to give you the flexibility to add more in. I would tell you that 98% of policies are not set up with that flexibility. So if they didn't know that initially, or they definitely probably didn't do that if it's just a universal life. Yeah, I would almost bet and say that yours probably more likely to not have that ability than to have that ability. So, but I also don't know who set up your policy. So I definitely would want to get that reviewed.
Okay, thank you.
But we can tell you though right away, like we can look at your, if you go to wealthcreationcall.com, we can look at it and kind of do what's called an in-force illustration. And we can look at that policy and tell you pretty quickly.
Okay, so one more question. In regards to any of the policies that you're able to borrow from, is there a certain amount of time before you're able to borrow? Because I know a lot of people say, oh, you put money in, you could borrow, you could do this, that. But I did ask a question a while ago to another insurance agent. He said, well, you have to have the policy for at least like 20 years or so. Before, before you borrow from it.
The way that we structure ours is typically about 30 days.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Wow.
Yeah, and again, it's all on how you structure it. If you structure it for the lowest amount of death benefit, the highest amount of cash value, is set up to borrow from it quicker.
Okay. Thank you so much.
And where do you go to get your policy review? On wealthcreationcall.com.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith.
Yeah, I was able to borrow from my policy after the second month. So it's fairly quick. I don't know where they get 20 years from, but that is you know what? It's important. One, you need to be careful who you get your information from. And then two, it's so important how your policies are structured. Because last time I checked, you guys are building generational wealth. And so you want to do it the right way, and you want to do it faster versus slower. So I think I have two more questions in the chat. One said, so I will operate the business trust via contract with the people I'm consulting. So you're going to operate the business trust just like you would operate an LLC. Right. So it's the same way. The only thing is that you don't have to go through the Secretary of State in order to create that entity. You create the entity yourself. You will get a certificate of trust. You will get an EIN. You can start building business credit with that EIN just like you would an LLC. If they ask you for proof of your trust, you provide the certificate of trust. You're able to do everything else the way that you wanted to do. So if you want to trademark your business, you can. If you want to get a website, you can. If you want to offer products and services, you can. So you can operate your business trust like you would any other type of business. The next question is, can you elaborate on the corporate credit? So just like how you can build trust business credit with a LLC or a corporation, it's identical. So a trust will build business credit. Like I said, you go get your EIN number, you go get your DUNS number from Dun & Bradstreet. Once you have that profile, you can start applying for Net 30 accounts. And then that will build up your profile to where you will get a PAYDEX score. That PAYDEX score is like your FICO score. It's a credit score for your business trust. So it's the same process. But if you're interested in that process, you will learn it inside of the program. Next question is, where do we go again for the policy review? So you go to wealthcreationcall.com. So I'm going to go ahead and put that again in the chat. So you book a call with Marvin's team, and they'll be able to review your policy to see if you have a good policy. The next question is, are you guys certified to do this? This is great information, but make sure hard-earned money is safe. Okay, so am I certified to do this? So I am a trustee. I've been operating as a trustee since 2015, and I'm showing people how to actually create their trust. So you can create your own trust. You don't have to be certified in order to create your own trust, just like you don't have to be certified in order to create your LLC or certified in order to create a rental contract for your house, right? So you don't have to be certified in order to establish your own private trust, okay? And Marvin, he is a financial advisor, so he is in the Hall of Fame for advisors. The next question is, what about the address for the trust? So you don't want to use the address that you are personally associated with. So if you have been associated with your primary residence, then you want to use either a PO box or a virtual address or some other type of address where it's not associated with you, because you don't want that trust to be associated with the same address that you're associated with, just to conceal your identity if you want, if you want obscurity. The next question is, for the business trust, when opening a bank account, would we open it as a business or a personal account? You would open it as a trust account. Okay, so there are trust accounts with whatever bank that you guys are deciding to bank with. So it's not a personal account and it's not a business account, it's a trust account. Okay, so you would open up a trust account with that bank. Do you use foreign EINs or regular EINs? So that's up to you, if that's per preference, okay? So in the program, I show you how to get a 98 number if you want to, and that's a foreign EIN, but you do need a foreign address. Or you can get a regular EIN, and you can use a third party in order to apply for that EIN. For the ministry trust, you will get a domestic EIN because it is considered a nonprofit faith-based organization. And so there's a specific, unique way to apply for the EIN, so you're exempt from federal taxes. And I need one-on-one ASAP. How soon are you available? So I am available as soon as Friday. Has a home in a trust with an EIN. How do you transfer your personal debt into the trust to discharge the debt? So, I mean, there's a lot of unique ways that you can do that. So one way is if you refinance your debt, right? So if you refinance your debt into the trust, right? So you would have to build credit with the trust, refinance your personal debt into the trust. So now on the personal side, that debt is paid off, and then now it's transferred. It's just like a debt consolidation. Now it's transferred somewhere else. So it's transferred to the trust. And then at that point, you can do what you need to do as far as either paying it off, or if you want to file for bankruptcy for the trust, you could do that as well. If you're not able to afford paying off that debt that's now transferred into the trust. So let's see. All right, Jessica. So Jessica, this is gonna be the last question. So hey, Jessica.
Hi there.
Hi, how
Hello.
are you?
Good, good. Thank you both for the information tonight.
You're welcome.
I have two questions, but I think they kind of relate to each other.
Okay.
So if I recently bought a house like in the past 6 months, and it's in my name because I didn't know about all of this. So you said you can do a quick claim deed to transfer the ownership to the trust. So, but my question is, does the bank want to know that the trust can pay the mortgage?
So that's a good question. So, I mean, listen, everything depends on whatever financial institution that you're banking with, right? So I can't tell you what Wells Fargo wants besides, Bank of America, besides all these other banks. But what I can tell you is that when you transfer the property from your personal name into the trust, the property is still going to the mortgage is still going to remain like on the property, and it's still going to remain under your name, and it's still going to remain on your credit. So ultimately you are still responsible. So all you have to do is notify the bank to let them know that the trust is the payer, and then they'll have you sign like an authorization. And if they ask you for any additional information, I haven't seen that they asked you for that. But if they do, then you can provide any additional information. But if not, then all you have to do is just let them know that the trust is now the authorized personnel that's going to pay the mortgage.
Okay. And my second question, if I may, is kind of related, but if I've only right now have one income from my job for the IUL, I understand that I would be, after I get my direct deposit, I would put the money into the IUL. So I don't even know if this makes sense, my question, but if I'm making X amount per month, because I only get paid once a month, how am I accumulating enough to be borrowing against?
Yeah, so you can hear me. Okay, so there's different strategies that you have with these IULs. One strategy is to build it up and pour as much money into it as possible and then leverage against it to buy assets, right? The other strategy is use it to get out of debt for people who might have lower incomes and people who are trying to get away from being a debtor. And I don't know which one you are, a debtor or a saver. But so what you do, what everybody does for the most part, is you probably have bills, right? So you probably have bills that you pay and maybe credit cards, maybe utilities, etc. What I train some people to do in that situation is to actually pay yourself first, which means instead of paying all of your bills first, actually fund the life insurance policy first, because then you can borrow against the life insurance policy and then pay those bills, and the money in your life insurance policy is continuing to grow. So you can pay off your debt and save at the same time. You don't have to choose. So that's one of the strategies that we use. So again, I don't know your exact situation. I would need to definitely talk with you more, but I do know we have helped some people without a lot of extra cash flow pay the same amount of bills and the same amount of debt, but get out of debt like 2/3 time faster.
Okay, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Perfect. So we are all done for the evening. We have went over time, so it's 10:13. So thank you so much, you guys, for being here tonight and listening to this presentation. And the only thing that we have to say is take action on the information that we provided, because you guys are wealth creators and you're building generational wealth and breaking curses and changing the trajectory of your family. So empower yourselves and create your own estate, because if not, the state is going to create an estate for you, and you don't want that to happen. So you guys be blessed. And like I said, you guys can, book a call with Marvin's team. You can book a call with my team. You can go to wealthytrustee.com. Or you can text the community line that you received the Zoom link. So you guys have an absolute wonderful night. Happy holidays and be blessed. Thank you.
Can't wait for all of y'all's success. I'll see y'all at the top.
Thank you.